Our products are organically sourced natural healthy foods from Nigeria, West Africa, sourced directly from the small local farmers. At Naturalike, we believe what you put in your body and on your body can dramatically impact your health and well-being. Boost your energy levels and satisfy your cravings with a healthy dose of natural sweetness from our products. We're excited to help lead African foods and products into the global health and wellness markets. Follow us on Instagram at Naturalike, on Facebook at Naturalike LLC, and YouTube at Naturalike TV. These organically sourced foods are available at our Amazon store, amazon.com/Naturalike. Email us at naturalikeproducts@gmail.com.
Peace, family. We are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Do me a favor. Do me a solid. Make sure you make sure you hit that like button. Again, please hit that like button as you come into the chat room. Also, make sure you share and make sure you subscribe. Couple of announcements before we get started. Announcement number one: we are rolling to Nigeria. We are rolling to Nigeria August 4th through the 13th. August 4th through the 13th, we are rolling to Nigeria. Please visit Danfo, DANFO.Africa. Again, please visit Danfo, DANFO.Africa. Somebody, Juanita, hey, Dynasty, I got my notifications back. There you go. I'm happy you got your notifications back. Because people have been saying, Dynasty, I'm not getting the notifications. Dynasty, I'm not getting, I feel like I've been unsubscribed. Dynasty, I feel like you're shadow banned. And I reached out to YouTube about being shadow banned, because I know people bring up this whole shadow ban, you're being shadow banned, we're being shadow banned. And when I reached out to YouTube about shadow banning, they said there's no such thing. And they said there's no such thing. And guys, right now, this festival you see where we're going to, the Oshun Festival in Nigeria, is a Yoruba. It's a Yoruba festival. The Oshun Festival. And I'll get into this. So when you guys leave comments on my videos, I read the comments. I respond to some I don't. But the question was asked, why are Black Americans more drawn to Yoruba culture over Igbo culture when the majority of Black Americans have more DNA, more Igbo DNA than Yoruba DNA? And I'm going to get into that because it's really, the answer is complex but simple. But really, it's simple. But it's, I don't want to overcomplicate the answer. Okay, they changed them to personal notifications, so they have to change it back to all notifications. Now, let me read this comment real quick. Somebody just said. Okay, never mind. So yeah, this is not divisive. Somebody asked the question, and I'm going to give my opinion. All right, again, I'm going to give my opinion. All right, I'm going to give my opinion. It's not divisive. I'm just saying, I'm going to give my opinion on why the diaspora is more drawn to Yoruba culture over Igbo culture. It's pretty simple. But we're going to the Oshun Festival, August 4th through the 13th. August 4th through the 13th, we are going to the Oshun Festival. Please visit Danfo, DANFO.Africa. Again, please visit Danfo, DANFO.Africa to learn more. We have 4 spots left, and then we are also going to Zanzibar, September 22nd through October 1st, September 22nd through October 1st for Safari Blue. So if you're interested in joining us, please visit donfo.africa. Again, please visit donfo.africa. The link is in the ticker down here at the bottom. Guys, give me a second. I want to grab in fact, let me do this first. Let me jump into the topic. I'm going to put the link in the chat room. So for people who want to add to the conversation, you're more than welcome to add to the conversation. So the question that was left on one of my videos, which I think is a good question. Why are Black Americans more drawn to Yoruba culture over Igbo culture? Then the individual that asked the question went on to add that more African Americans have more Igbo DNA than they do Yoruba DNA, which I need to see the facts on that. But we're going to assume that's true. But still, I would want to see the facts on that. If somebody could provide that, because now we know about Igbo landing, but also too, when we deal with the Clotilda and Kusula, Kusula, God, what was Kusula's last name? The Clotilda, the last slave ship that came to the United States of America through Mobile, Alabama. What was Kusula? Kusula, guys, give me a second. I'm sorry about that. But was Cujo Lewis. His name was Kosola, but Cujo. Those are all Yorubas. Or they were from a so everyone on that ship, Clotilda, those were all Yorubas for the most part. Or they were from I guess the term would be a sub ethnic group, or I don't want to say tribe, sub ethnic group of the Yorubas. But they were Yoruba. They were Yoruba. So again, this, the person that posted the question that there are more Igbos. Our Black Americans are more closely related to Igbos than Yorubas. I don't know. I don't have the data on that, but if you have the information or the facts on that, please, by all means, post it somewhere in the chat. But for Black Americans who are interested in reconnecting back to Africa, for Black Americans who are interested in specifically specifically African spirituality or African spiritual systems, there's voodoo and there's Ifa. For the most part, those are the two systems. And Ifa is the spiritual system, or really it's the culture, but we'll say religion for all intents and purposes, so people can relate, even though it's not a religion. It's just a way of life. It's part of the culture. We'll say spiritual system, but we'll say religion so people can relate. Of the Yorubas. And it's easier to access. So this is a book right here, Odu Ifa by Mulana Korenga. And I have a ton, I have several. Hold on, that's more. Like I have a number of books on Ifa. And when you want to learn more about African spirituality, the only literature that's really out there in abundance that you have access to is on voodoo and Ifa. There aren't that many texts which go into detail on Igbo spirituality. There aren't. And I don't want this to be divisive, but I thought it was more Yoruba DNA. Mine is Yoruba, but I've been told by Yoruba that they detect Igbo. I don't know. I don't know what that means. But there's just more literature and information, and it's easier to access more information and literature on Yoruba religion and on voodoo than there is Igbo religion. So when we're on that path, when we're on a journey to learn more about traditional African spirituality, I mean, it's easier to get the Yorubas or whomever have made it more accessible. It is easier versus Igbos. And it's not personal, it's the way it is. But now let me say this. I have this book right here, Wealth Code of the Igbos. When it comes to business culture, Igbos have the #1 apprenticeship program on the planet. Again, Igbos have one of the, and I'm going to get into this whole Hebrew thing. I'm going to get into that. Igbos have one of the #1, in fact, not one of the #1, I want to say the #1 apprenticeship programs, them and of course Jews, apprenticeship programs, that we're speaking specifically on Igbos, on the planet. So when it comes to business culture, I mean, you have to think about it. The #1 Black-owned airline right now, owned by an Igbo man, Innocent, a car manufacturer, one of the #1, I don't know, a bigger Black car manufacturer on the planet, owned by an Igbo man in Nigeria. So airlines, car manufacturers, the list goes on. So when it comes to business culture, Igbos by far. So there has to be a media, but again, when Black Americans, when we engage Africa, usually it's not, when we first engage Africa, it's not from a business standpoint. It's more from a spiritual standpoint. So that's why this comes in place. But when it comes in play as far as the spiritual aspect, but once it's time to do business, we got to pick up these books. You know, you see the situation right now in Nigeria and Lagos with Landmark, the beach. That's owned by an Igbo man. Listen, let me put this. Somebody told me, if you go somewhere, anywhere on this planet, if you go somewhere, anywhere on this planet, and if you do not see an Igbo there doing business, there's no money to be made there. So I'm like, we need to merge the two. We need to merge the two. And don't get me wrong, there are very successful Yoruba. In fact, the second richest Nigerian is a Yoruba. The richest woman in the world is a Yoruba woman. So let's not forget that. But Igbos have done an excellent job when it comes to industry. Again, Igbos have done an excellent job when it comes to industry. And so have Yorubas. And so have Hassa Fulani. I mean, Aliko Dangote is the richest Black man on the planet. But we can learn from each other. We can learn from everybody. But it'll be great to merge the two. Yoruba spirituality, Igbo business. Merge the two. And somebody brought up this whole Hebrew thing. For the life of me, and this is for the Igbos, why and this is not just for the Igbos, I'm sorry, this is for Black people in general. I don't understand Black people's infatuation with the country called Israel. I don't understand it. Again, I do not understand Black people's infatuation with Israel. Traveling throughout West Africa, parts of East Africa, South Africa, what do you gain? Like, just get somebody explain to me. Like, what do you gain by saying your religion or your people come from from the country called Israel as an African? I just don't get it. Like, what do you gain? Like, what's so special about having so much reverence? Like, I had an African once tell me that Israel is the promised land over his homeland. And I just don't get it. Igbos, Yorubas, Africans in general, our culture spans thousands and thousands of years. This identity called Hebrew is newer. This Hebrew stuff. So why I don't understand, because right now, shout out to Go Back to Africa. I have no problem with him. He's in Igbo land. I guess there's, you have a few Igbos who claim they are Hebrews and Jews. Why? I don't know. It makes absolutely no sense to me. It's like taking a step backwards. It's like you're taking a step backwards. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, what's this obsession with being an Israeli? Can somebody explain to me what's this obsession with being an Israeli? Nothing against the Israelis, but why are some Black people so infatuated with wanting to be an Israeli? I don't get it. Why are some Black people so infatuated with the Star of David when Igbos have a culture that spans thousands of years, a beautiful culture, their own traditions, their own gods? Why do you want to be a Hebrew? I don't know. Go ahead, John.
Hi. Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, Dynast. How's everything? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead. Loud and clear.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. First of all, just to answer your immediate question, why are Africans obsessed with the Hebrew Israel culture? First of all, you have to understand that Africans are very much miseducated. If you come to schools in Nigeria, for example, in Africa, the history that they teach starts from the colonial history. So, for example, in Nigeria, when they teach, there's nothing like African history. You only get a glimpse of African history in, let's say, in language class. For example, if you're in the Southwest, that is in Lagos, you would do a course called Yoruba. So in Yoruba, for example, I'm Igbo because but I grew up in the southwest, so I speak Yoruba. I don't speak Igbo. So they teach you a bit of Yoruba history, and it's always very brief. So if you go to Igbo, they also teach you a bit of Igbo history, and it's very brief. But if you look at Africa's curriculum, I think it's very, very, very much Eurocentric. That's the problem with Africa's Nigeria's curriculum in Africa in general. So, for example, we don't know, most Africans don't know their history before the colonial masters. That's the problem, and you can see that it affects us, our self-esteem as Africans. um you know and your community has also complained about Africans seeing white people as superior and the likes of them. So it's a mental thing, but I'm so happy with the age of information with YouTube and everything. We are starting to learn. I just started learning African history, I think, when I was about to leave high school. I started to understand that, okay, Africans were 1,000 years old before. I know Africa has one of the most oldest civilization. Europe didn't be, if in fact Europe, what you see in Europe is quite very new. So Africans are quite, have been existing before anybody else. In fact, everybody else come from Africa. So that's the truth. So, but it's going to take time for the information to settle in. So people are fighting back at the information that what happened. No, no, no. The white man is better. Everything is about him is perfect and the likes of them. So I think that's the problem, and whoever is coming next can buttress on it. And secondly, your question on why African Americans, Black Americans love Yoruba culture, are more drawn to Yoruba culture than Igbo culture. I will explain in my own understanding. So, first of all, Yorubas are the only people. Actually, I'm Igbo. My dad is Yoruba. My dad is Igbo. My mom is Yoruba. So I've lived both different lives. So, I think the reason why, because Yoruba still, despite the invasion of the British and everything, the Yorubas were still able to retain their culture. They're able to retain, like, Yoruba is kind of more, if you go to Yoruba land, they still have historic sites. Everything is still
Right.
intact.
It's more preserved. Right.
It's more preserved. Yes, it's more preserved. They've been able to preserve the culture so well. And they were able to avoid the civil war. So the civil war, I think they were able to escape it, and they were able to preserve themselves. But the Southeast, the Igbo people, it wasn't like that till the civil war. So um they were a lot more conscious. They were a lot more tradition in the Igbo land. But what you have to understand, that after the civil war, the 1967, 1964 to 1967, they were bombed. The Igbos were bombed to stupor, and they had no
Hey,
help.
let me make a statement real quick, guys. Listen, none of this tribalism in the chat, okay? None of the tribalism. Let's be respectful of each other. We're one Nigeria, okay? I don't support Biafra. I don't support Oduduwa Republic. We're one Nigeria, but at the same time, none of this tribalism. Mark, go ahead, John.
Okay, all right. So thank you. So I think it was the civil war that really set the Igbos, most Igbos, it really affected them so much, because during the civil war, the southeast was bombarded so much, and when they were about to rebuild, it was the Catholics and the Anglican that bombarded the Igbo people. So the Catholic Church, thereby, see, every Igbo is a Catholic. Every Igbo. If you grew up in the southeast, because the reason why I'm not Catholic is because I didn't grow up in the southeast. I grew up in the southwest, so I'm Pentecostal. So I have no. But if you go up in the southeast, it is calling cat. It is cat. Everybody is a Catholic there. Everybody. So because of that, a lot of culture, a lot of tradition has been lost in Igbo land. So, like, for example, in Igbo land, you hardly see polygamy. It's one man, one wife. So everybody wants to become a priest. Like, for example, in Igbo land, if you're a priest, it's a thing of honor. If you are a sister, those ladies who wear white, follow the Catholic Church. You have lots of Igbo women in that culture because of the influence of the Catholic Church in the southeast. So everywhere, for example, if you become successful, for example, as an Igbo man, you must build a church. So the church helped we the Igbos rebuild. The Nigerian government still owe us reparation about 75 billion naira. 75 billion naira that then was about 900 million, about $1 billion. They still owe the Southeast. They've done nothing about it. So I think it owes to the civil war. But if you go to if you go to the Southeast, some places are still they still have some historical site like Igbo Museum. They still have some things, but civil war history, when you have so many, even before the civil war, there was something called Ekumeku War. Ekumeku War was the Igbo resistance to the British. So most people don't know this, that the Igbos were the last to fall to the British. It took the British 30 years to penetrate the Southeast. 30 years. They were fighting the British, fighting back. So after a war of 30 years, you're finally conquered and defeated. And not long after then, about 40 years later, the Biafran War, massive bombardment, and the likes of them. So I think that's the reason why the Igbo people have lost so much. So like in the southeast now, it's more of Christianity and the likes of them. So you don't get to see more of a Pan-Africanism in that culture. So if I check, if in my uncles, my aunties, they are Catholics. I think I have one as a priest in this as Igbo. So, but from my Yoruba side, they are all traditional people. So they still speak their language. They are still, they are kings. They're still, so those societal, so those hierarchies are still intact, but it's quite different with the South. So that's just what I have to say. So thank you for having me once again.
Hey, I appreciate you for coming on. All right, Abube, go ahead, brother. You got to mute yourself, Abube. Go ahead, Abube. You're muted. Abube,
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, man. This is I actually got to catch you. Perfect. I actually got to catch you during
Abube, you got to turn off the playback.
Yes, sir. It's off.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So there was just a bit of history that I wanted to talk about. It's an interesting piece of history. In regards to the Hebrew connection, you have to remember that a lot of people they look at more so the tribe and not the actual place of what we call Israel today. And if you look at the Bible and historical records, there were a lot of Hebrew people throughout Africa, still in North Africa, parts of West Africa, and there was interconnectivity. So, for example, if you think about Bornu Canaan, which was one of the oldest empires in West Africa, around 784 AD, 835 AD, there was a ruler, Dagan. She was very influential. He introduced toilet paper, coffee, and he was actually the first person who he mass deported Hebrew people out of that part of Nigeria. So what you have to understand is that there were Hebrew people living in Nigeria in 780, most likely through the Saharan trade that had already existed thousands of years before. So some people, because you had different pockets of Jewish people throughout Africa, some people state that their lineages or a part of their lineage descend from some of these groups. It's an interesting theory. I think more investigation should be done to verify some of these claims, but there is a historical basis just based in history. There is a basis for potentially some claims, but once again, the real question is, and I always say this when it comes to history, is that you look at your history and you use it to empower you in some sort of way. Or you look at the history. So if you lost the war, you look at the history of the people who won. What did they do to win? And then you learn a lesson from that. And then you look at you and you say, well, what did my people do to lose? And then you learn a lesson from that and you use it to empower yourself. You don't get over caught up on it as if your history alone will give you power. No, your history gives you information. And from that point, you use it to acquire power as an individual and as a group of people. That's the only way to survive as a group of people, is that you continually and consistently have to be acquiring power, because life is is shown to you in nature. The animals that are powerful, they continue to live. The animals that are powerless, eventually they will be consumed by the more powerful animal, or they'll be consumed by the elements. So, just as a brief aside, or in summation, I'd rather say, when it comes to Africans using our history is vast. We're the oldest people here. However, we don't need to get caught up on the history for history's sake. We need to analyze and study our history as well as the history of those who are more successful in the current, in order to use that to empower ourselves for the future. But Dynasty, I gotta hop off. I gotta get back to driving.
Okay.
But I just wanted to throw that in there. But thank you for your time, brother.
Oh, anytime, anytime. All right, Larry, go ahead, Larry.
Hi, hello. Where did you get the propaganda that the Black Americans are more drawn to the Yorubas? Where did that come from?
I mean, Larry, it's the truth. Like, you know, when you talk about, as far as we'll deal with African spirituality. So Black Americans who are drawn to African spirituality is either Ifa or Voodoo. It's not any other ethnic group. So then when you deal with Nigeria, more Black Americans are drawn to what we call the Southwest or Yoruba land than they are anywhere else.
Maybe
because of Ifa.
It could be a number of things. Maybe because I don't.
Larry, you sound real muffled.
Oh, hang on. Maybe. Oh, I know what it is. Sorry, hold on.
Adnam, stop it. Stop it, Adnam. But again, this is just in response to a question that was posted on my page. Guys, hit the like button again. Please hit the like button. Links in the chat room. If you want to call in, please click on the link. Go ahead, Wale, while Larry fixes his
Hey,
Go ahead. Wale.
Yeah, I'm coming at you, man. I had just had that double talk on. So yeah, I was just saying, you know, being that I was born in in America, and I'm Yoruba, and I am initiated, and you know, for over 50 years now. What I have seen is that the Yoruba have a quite systematic and easily understandable dynamics of the what you call religion and the culture, and therefore, and it's also easily available, and a lot of people are familiar with it. Like I was saying, someone say Brazil, Cuba, Puerto Rico, la-di-da. So it's a lot of familiarity with that sort of thing. And even though it's not all just basically Yoruba, you know, there's some Dahomey with the fawn and all that kind of stuff. So it's around that area. But all of that is very organized and easy to understand. And it blends more with the consciousness or the experience of the people in the Americas attempting to understand some type of African culture or religion. It seems to be simpatico.
Right, like I said, it's easier to access the information as far as with Ifa and Voodoo versus other spiritual systems.
Agreed, 100.
Guys, links in the chat room. Link is in the chat room. If you want to call in, please call in. Larry, you get your stuff, your phone fixed?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. I hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of not propaganda. Sorry, I think the Yorubas are good at promoting themselves. But that's what because you said it. It's like when you think of the other tribes or ethnic groups, you can't really think what spiritual system they follow. You know, it doesn't spring to mind. So historically, I think maybe a lot of Yorubas ended up in the Americas. They were abducted and they ended up in the Americas, and in the Caribbean and Central America and South America, they held on to their culture. But I don't know. This is all news to me, Dynast. You're teaching me here. I'm like, what? They're drawn to the Yorubas. Okay, this is
I
new to
mean,
me.
No, it's not. It's not new. It's true. It's a
true.
true thing. Yeah.
It's true. Because of Ifa.
I'll take your word for it.
You say Ifa, and I just say Orisha, but
Well, Orisha, Ifa, Orisha. I mean,
you could say that,
Hey,
but
hey,
most
hey,
people that I found are drawn to
hey,
Orisha,
Dynast,
not necessarily Ifa.
well,
What
it's interconnected. I mean, once they come to the
Okay,
Orisha
sorry.
and
Let me
Ifa, it's interconnected.
let me explain. Let me explain. Ifa is an Orisha. So there are different kinds of Orisha. We have Ifa, we have Obatala, we have Uyimoja. So they are called Orisha. Orisha is a group, is a group a name. You know, the various clans, worship various have various religions. So we have Shango, they are called Orisha. That's what they are called. So there are different Orishas in Yoruba land. We have Ifa puts on white. We have Shango wears red. We have Obatala, I think it says you
He's
don't
white.
drink wine. Yes, you don't drink wine as an
But
Obatala
but
worshiper.
Ifa is the divination system as well.
Okay, Ifa. Okay,
OB?
all right. So yeah, so that's just it.
We
That's
do
all I know.
OB. Here we do OB. I mean, we know of Ifa, but most people don't do
I
it.
don't know where you're from. You said I don't know where you're from. You said we do.
I said I was born in America, man.
Yeah, but you said OB or I don't.
You don't know OB.
No,
We
what's
know
OB?
OB is from the Orisha. The man that was talking just now, he knows. I would assume he knows what I'm talking about. But Orisha, Ifa, is not the only deity of divination.
Well, I didn't know. And correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't know Ifa was Orisha. Ifa is the divination system, the spiritual
Yeah,
system.
keep talking to my man who was talking to you.
Ifa,
He knows.
Ifa's an Orisha, an actual Orisha. Man,
That's what he was telling you.
you sure it's the divination?
No. It's like, yeah, it's his own religious sect. So that's just it. His own
Thank you. It's a
religious sect.
religious.
So
Well,
it's
that's what I'm saying. It's the it's I hate it's the spiritual system. It's not an actual Orisha.
In layman terms, you don't create a shrine to Ifa and worship Ifa. You create it to worship, I don't know, Shango, Oshun, and all
Maybe.
those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not Ifa. It's not a Orisha. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Al, go ahead, Al.
Yeah, the dynasty, the richest tribes in the continent. I think I posted it at the back. I don't know if you can see it because it's basically with the list here. It says Zulu, South Africa. Then you got Pedi, South Africa. Then you got Hausa and Fulani. They came third. Then you got the Suri, Ethiopia, and Sudan. I think where they got under the. And I think Yoruba actually did came somewhere. And they got the Igbos in Nigeria. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you got the Ashanti.
And the
And
fawn. And the fawn.
Yeah, is that the Ashanti and the Pan maybe? Yeah, this one of the part of the same group, isn't it?
But you ignore the Hausa?
No, that's right. The Hausa and the Fula, they came third. They're the
Please,
third richest group.
okay,
Now.
can I challenge you with that list? Do I go on?
It's up to you, but that's not that's not me that making it up. This thing is,
Yeah.
some people are just loud with money. Some people are very quiet with their wealth. You know, this is reality.
like when you're talking about wealth, success, you talk about when it comes to per capita, when like for example, different tribes accumulate wealth in different ways. So, for
Right.
example, the Hausa Fulani that leads on top, that people call the
Hausa and Fulani.
yes,
Yes.
Hausa, they have their wealth concentrated on one person. So, and you can't really call that wealth.
I wouldn't say that because
98% of the Hausa Fulani are stinkingly poor. So you don't call that wealth.
you are wrong again. Finish. I know for a fact the majority of the rich Fulanis are actually my people. The majority of the rich ones are not concentrated in Nigeria. They are around Senegal, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Dynasty. You know that, right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
understand.
Yes.
I understand you. I
Thank you.
understand you.
Chidi, I'm gonna pass it to you in a second, Chidi. Go ahead. Well, let me pass it back to Al Loud, and I pass it to Chidi. Then we good.
Yes. In fact, Guinea. When I'll give you a good example. When Guinea was sanctioned by the ECOWAS for the last few years, the way the Guinean government was surviving is through the Fulanis businessmen in the country. The government was going to borrow money from them to actually look after the country. This is how wealthy the business people are. And I mean, in Senegal, the Fulani are the wealthiest group. In Guinea, they are the wealthiest. The Sierra Leone are the wealthiest. In Guinea-Bissau, they're the wealthiest. And you talk about one tribe. You possibly go to, in fact, in Liberia, they're catching up. I don't know that well in Liberia, but even if you go to Ivory Coast, there are loads of wealthy Fulani over there. Also, they have Madinka business people. And then if you add those in Nigeria, you put them together, you're looking at really wealthy people. But obviously, I think our poorest population in the continent probably would be Nigeria as a tribe. So, and we are not the sort of people that will actually boast about their wealth. If you see an average Fulani guy with millions, you think he has no money and he's poor. Well, basically, the reality is very wealthy guy. So, and also, I think Yorubas are also another list I saw not long ago. Last year, Yorubas came about second or third wealthiest.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, can I put in?
That's my take.
Yeah, go ahead, Chidi.
Yeah,
go ahead,
on.
Yeah, according to Nigeria, based on the fact what you are saying is, I think you are talking about Africa in the whole. But when you are talking about in Nigeria, the wealthiest tribe in Nigeria, to everybody's knowledge, first is the Igbos, and second is the Yoruba, and then third comes the Hausa Fulani. But when you divide the tribe because they put themselves together, then it is the Hausas. So I don't know what he's talking about. Is it the whole Africa or you are talking about in Nigeria?
Yes.
The list I have is in the entire African continent.
Which list? Okay, have you checked the list? We are talking about Nigeria. We are not from the context
in Nigeria. The Hausa and the Fulani comes first.
Hausa and Fulani comes first.
In Nigeria, yes.
Are you a Nigerian?
I disagree with that.
Okay.
Are you a Nigerian? From where are you from,
no,
please?
I don't have to be a Nigerian to tell you that.
Yeah, but I'm a Nigerian. I know. I don't have to tell you.
Why does that make a difference?
Yeah,
someone doesn't have to be in the country to tell you the richest.
Hello?
Yeah, go on, speak.
Yeah, because you are speaking over me. Like I'm a Nigerian, I'm telling you for the facts from Nigeria, from what is on the ground. When you talk about the richest tribe in Nigeria are the Igbos. The Fulanis came into what we can call providence after during the military regime. During the military regime, they started, started to see something like wealth through, military, through politics and governance. But when you talk about business and economics, where the wealth is located, is in the Igbo land and in the Yoruba land. And then in the Hausas. The Hausas has been in the business for a long time in Nigeria. They have been in buying and selling also, just like the Igbos. But they are not that, capitalist in business. But whereas the Igbos, their counterpart are capitalist in business.
Please?
Let me
Yeah.
buttress on you, sir.
Well, hold on. Let me pass it to Jagoon first and Festus. Then you guys can add to it. Jagoon, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Your name means fight. Interesting.
It actually means warrior, if you understand it properly. However, if we can move on, interesting subject, Prince Dynast, a very interesting subject. I just wondered, however, whether it was more a subject for an African American audience to be able to ascertain why they have or you guys have more of an affection or feeling towards Yoruba or Igbo, rather than a Nigerian. I'm just asking based on the topical question. I would just want to understand that.
Can I answer that?
No, well, I answered it as an African American as well.
Oh,
I answered it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. I've joined about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. No. So when a lot of African Americans, when we engage Africa, is more on a spiritual journey.
Okay.
So
culture.
And culture. So we have more access to, especially on the spiritual side, voodoo and Ifa.
Very good. Very good. I now fully appreciate.
And that's pretty much it. So that's why
I see.
When somebody asked the question, so somebody posted the question, I thought this would be an interesting topic. Why are Black Americans more drawn to Yoruba culture over Igbo culture, when I guess allegedly Black Americans are more connected to Igbos as far as DNA, genetics, right? And I said, well, it's just there's not that much information readily available when it comes to Igbo spiritual systems, but there is when it comes to Yoruba, which will be Ifa, and Voodoo, which is
very good. Very good. I can lend more of an understanding to that now that I appreciate exactly where everybody's coming from. I think when we look at the unfortunate history we have of the transatlantic slavery, where Nigeria was concerned, and Yorubas in particular, they had a funny history with the whole slavery issue. They were taken up in the very first instances and then not taken up again realistically until the latter stages of slavery in the 17th, 18th century, whereas many were taken, way before that. So being one of the late transports, if you like, I was looking for a better word, forgive me, to the Americas were the Yorubas. And what they brought and what they connected to in terms of spirituality was now founded. And it was founded over many aspects. I think when it comes to the amount of people taken as slaves, the majority were Yoruba. The second majority were the Igbo. The Igbo were taken from a long time ago in terms of the transatlantic slavery, and they do have a history of it, and there are a lot of especially speech patterns that can be attributed to the Igbo. However, when it comes to the Yorubas, we were the most taken right across the whole of the Americas, right from Argentina all the way to Canada, if you like. The Caribbean is full. Brazil, we know of. The Americas, Louisiana, we know very well of the Yoruba entry into these areas and the culture that they brought. Now, given this is why, especially with the culture, the food and culture, when it comes to our spirituality, it is a global thing. It's well founded. It's there. It's a reality. It's with the people. It's with the people who traveled. It's with the people who stayed behind. And these things can't really be denied. And really, to challenge it would be just based on loose thinking and not thinking at all. That's my submission. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother.
Hold on. Let me pass it to Festus first, and then we'll pass it back around. Go ahead, Festus.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prince, for doing this. I want to agree to what the previous caller said, Jagun, as far as on the timeline when Yorubas were actually being shipped off into slavery. One thing I must say though is, I think the topic of this discussion: why are Black Americans more drawn towards Yoruba culture versus Igbo culture? I totally appreciate this topic of discussion, but I might also think maybe it might have some divisive tendency because currently in Nigeria we have some sort of like ethnic bigotry going on. So when we start to choose one culture, one ethnic group over the other one, I don't think it's a very good message. I'm a Yoruba person, and I don't like to get into this Igbo versus Yoruba conversation. If we go to the previous one that you've talked about who are the richest, I might want to think it's the Igbos. Igbos traditionally they are very egalitarian, they are very democratic, and they are just business people. My folks live in Nigeria, live in Lagos, and I also read a lot of books. So I would think Yorubas are the second wealthiest, and it's definitely going to be like a very close distance between Igbos and the Yorubas. I also think the Fulanis are the richest because they own Nigeria. Nigeria is basically their state. They basically control the entirety of the country economically, militarily, everything. If you look at the oil that the country has, it's not necessarily owned by the federal government. It's owned by private individuals that own oil wells. So I think the Fulanis are the richest. And they aren't actually indigenous to Nigeria. They started coming around the 14th, 15th centuries. They were traders. They brought their cows. And around the time that Islamic insurgency started in the early 1800s, the one that was led in Nigeria was led by a Fulani guy called Usman Danfodio. He's from this Torobe Fulani set. They were Islamic scholars, so they took over the Hausa kingdoms. And till today, they've been made the heirs of the country. And when Britain came, Britain actually helped the Fulanis to basically govern over all of Nigeria. And they divided Yorubas and Igbos to start hating each other. I would urge you to read a book called A Fatherless People. And it talks from the creation of Nigeria. Yeah, by Dele Ogun, yes. And to what Jagun said about like those sold mostly into slavery, the number one people that were sold were the blacks in Angola. Number two and three are the Yorubas and Igbos. So Yorubas are late comers into the slave trade because we had the Oyo Empire that started from like 1200 or whatnot. And around the mid 1700s was when Oyo started having cracks. One prime minister deposed four kings, and the next king that came in deposed that bad prime minister. They had this toss between like military expansion or economic trade. Military is basically you have more soldiers, you conquer more land, and that kept Yoruba people more or less safe from the slave trade. But when they thought it was a good king, and this good king chose trade, which involves selling people into slavery. And afterwards, they never really recovered. So when the Fulanis came into the Nigerian space in 1804, right, it had a spillover into the Yoruba space where Yorubas had civil war amongst them. So Oyo Empire was basically gone. You know, someone killed someone, betrayed each other, brought the Fulanis in. The Europeans at that time also had this plan to colonize all of West Africa. That was Britain. And they thought it necessary to break up the Oyo Empire. So they were selling guns, giving other vassal kingdoms of Oyo guns. They gave the Dahomis guns. They actually trained the Dahomis to fight against the Yorubas. They also gave some other Yoruba sub-ethnic group, the Edda people. So they basically had their intention to break up the empire. It was at that time, from the late 1700s to the mid 1800s, that bulk of Yorubas were being sold into slavery. Many of them were sold into Brazil. That's why others that were sold long before Yorubas got in, they more or less, I won't say almost lost their identity or their culture, but the fact that Yorubas were the last people being sold into slavery, I might say that's why we have a lot more of Yoruba culture that's still preeminent in the Americas, per se.
All right, let me pass it to Jamal. Jamal, you got your phone fixed? Your Obama phone, Jamal. See, Jamal. Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead, Shah.
Okay. I just wanted to first try to add a little more clarity to the word Ifa. So Ifa is used interchangeably with the deity Orumila and the process of divination, like you said, Dynasty, you guys have said. So it's the act of divination. It is also the deity that you would say Ifa. So you may be talking about Orumila. And it's also the guild of, Ifa is also the whole guild of priests. And so you could be using it in that way. And then secondly, I wanted you guys to not forget in terms of that it's popular, but amongst African Caribbeans, African Americans, even in Mexico, it's become popular in the world, actually. And if you were to look at the top 10 most practiced religions in the world or spiritual practices in the world, I think Orisha Ifa would be one of them. I remember having a conversation with Wande Abimbala, and he said there are something like 70 million people worldwide that practice Orisha Ifa, practice Ifa. But the other thing too that you have to take in consideration is that Ifa also, or the practice of Orisha worship, also in the Caribbean and in the Americas too, included the amalgamation of other traditions. For example, in Cuba, they brought the Kimbisa from Congo amalgamated it with Orisha worship, and so they call it Palo, and so the Palo would deal, in a lot of cases, would deal with ancestral things because the Gungun didn't make it across the water. It wasn't, for whatever reason, it didn't, kind of keep. So, and even as well, Ifa didn't come over right away. There's some information about the late Araba of Oderemo, who came in the 50s in Cuba to bring Ifa, to really enforce Ifa in Cuba in the 50s. It's the man that initiated me, actually. So you have Kimbisa or Palo amalgamated in Cuba with Orisha and Christianity as well. There's some aspects of Christianity in it. Then you also have people in those areas practicing Abakwa, which is practice in Eastern Nigeria. They have Nsibidi signatures of writing that the Igbo use Nsibidi as well. Even the Bamileke, I was talking to some guys from where's that? From Cameroon, who are Bamileke, and I mentioned to them Abakwa, and it was like, well, they used to call us Abakwa boys and girls. So they didn't really recognize that word, but there's been some people I've talked to about that. They recognize the words right away. So that's part of Igbo, the signatures, the Nsibidi. And then in Haiti, it's even more other traditions. Congo, you have Dahomey, you have what else? Stuff from the Mande groups. You have stuff even Native American things. Right. So you have there's 37 different tribes or ethnic groups that amalgamate in Haitian voodoo. And then in the United States, the voodoo that they practice in New Orleans and in the countryside is primarily Haitian voodoo, but it's a little different. They have a different focus on it, and there may be some hoodoo elements to it. But anyway, it's not just so simple. It's complicated in a way in which there's these other elements that are involved in it. And as well, in the United States, we have a lot of Congo, and we've got a lot, depending on the area, we've got a lot of Mande, like Wolo, different groups from Guinea, and in the United States and Congo. There's a lot of Congo. So people always attribute African Americans from Nigeria area or Ghana area, or Togo, Benin area. But in actuality, it's a mix. Louisiana had a lot of the Wolof, Guinea, Mali, Senegal. There's a lot of that and Congo in New Orleans. Gwendolyn Hall did some research on that. I'll land right there. Thank you.
All right,
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
You're right for that.
let me pass it to Dodge. I know to Dodge is trying to get on. Go ahead to Dodge. Unmute yourself.
What's up? What's up, Donnie? My sound good?
Yeah, that's cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. First, I wanted to say I agree with your point about if they're able to combine those two cultures. I don't know how that would look, but I think that could be a superpower as far as the financial aspect, which is debated, seems to be on the panel, and the spiritual projection of the Yoruba people. But I would say that it's definitely true, in my opinion, that most American Africans lean towards that Yoruba spiritual system. And for reasons like one of the brothers stated, countries like Cuba, etc., and a lot of those people coming up to America. I'm from New Orleans, and a lot of our people come from Haiti. A lot of Haitians came up to New Orleans and Louisiana in the early 1800s, especially. And like me growing up, you know, it was people in my family who practiced voodoo. We grew up knowing, like everybody in New Orleans, we grew up knowing about it. Like, we don't really learn about it, but we know, we give some credence to it. Like, we give some validity to it in one aspect or another, whether we want to stay away from it or go towards it. But I did learn recently that there is a small amount of, there's a growing population of people practicing Ifa in New Orleans. So I can't tell you whether or not that was there through the culture that survived because of our history and how we were able to keep our culture in New Orleans, or whether that came later. As far as to speak on why Black people are so drawn to the Hebrew stuff, I think that just because it's easier. I think it's easier because the white man has done such a great job of pushing his religion, his book, and all of this. It's easier for us to take some of that which we already know and then just change it over and say, okay, we the ones in the book, as opposed to the hard work and time it would take to learn a new, completely different spiritual system. The last thing I'm gonna say is, I think one of the reasons that the Yoruba culture and spiritual system is so easily picked up on by us is we also gotta not look past the fact that it also does a great job of just telling the story. It's the story. I don't know. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm just saying the things that I have heard. The stories are beautiful. They have. It's easy to imagine. So you got people who can put out literature to go along with the stories and everything. So yeah, that's what I think about that.
All right, cool. Go ahead, Al. Al.
The brother that last spoke, yeah, he's right. I know for a fact we have loads of people from Louisiana, like that part of America in the South, that trace their ancestors back to Sierra Leone and Guinea and the Senegambia region. You know, the other brother from Nigeria that spoke earlier, you know, when he was talking about wealth, I don't know about the wealthy. When I mentioned people from my tribe that are wealthy, I'm talking about those in the Guinea and the Senegambian coast. So I'm not bringing the statistics of those in Nigeria, just to make that clear. But I will come back after the other spoken, because I think there's others before me, Dynast.
Okay, let me Chidi, you want to ask something? Chidi, unmute yourself.
Do you hear me? I
hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think what my fellow panelists have said is right. They are right. In terms of your caption, why Americans tend to get attracted to Yoruba tradition and the Igbos, I would say it's because of the port of entrance to Nigeria. When you are coming into Nigeria, you first of all, you're gonna land in Lagos, and Lagos is a Yoruba land. So this for me is the reason. And when it comes to the Igbos that we are taking as slaves, and according to history, 99% of slaves that were taken from Igbo went directly to the United States. So it is more of the Yorubas that went to the West Indies, and their culture, affected those are Americans. So for the Igbos has always been, they say the Igbos doesn't have king, and traditionally we don't have king, and now we have kings, but the kings are not actually traditional. It's just like a warrant king, they call it. So in the tradition of the Igbos believe in, what they call the Council of Elders. The Council of Elders makes the decision, and then the decision is now translated to every other person. We are not like other tribes where one person is a king, he makes the decision, and everybody abides to it. In Igbo land, they say everybody is a king, a small king. So I think that tradition also affected, how information is being disseminated and everything. So that's my own input there.
Can I chip in?
Yeah, let me pass it. Jamal, go ahead, Jamal. Mute yourself.
Hey, thanks, Prince Amir. I appreciate it. This is a great conversation. I just want to add another twist to this, because 1 out of every 4 Muslims in America are Black American, right? And I think when you come to some cities, right, like let's say Philadelphia, who has a huge Muslim population, if a Nigerian comes to Philadelphia, which is if they're Yoruba and they're Muslim, right, they tend, right, to not necessarily assimilate, but kind of assimilate with the population more than maybe Igbos, right? Because generally, sometimes Igbos, they tend to maybe have their own churches, whatever. But Yorubas, right, they're at the masjids with African Americans and things like that too. So I just wanted to add that little tidpiece about the Muslim population of Yoruba. Some of them tend to, many of them, when they come to America, they tend to have that in common with a lot of African Americans, let's say in New York City, Chicago,
Yeah,
Detroit,
but Islam's not an indigenous African or Black religion. So
that's cool. That's cool though. But the question was why does African Americans, tend to take on that's part of your, but listen, Europa's been practicing Islam for 500, 600, 700 years. It's part of their culture now, right? So we can't
not necessarily. I mean, there are some Muslim, Yorubas, but
I mean 55% of them though, Dinus.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still not indigenous to Yoruba. It's not their religion. It's
no. Well, when it comes to Islam with the Yorubas, Islam into the Yoruba nation did not come in the way it came to the Hausa Fulani. The Hausa got it more from the Fulani, even though they had a level of Islam with the Hausas beforehand. However, with the Yorubas, their Islam came from Mali during the time of the great Ghana, Mali, Songhai empires. That's where it actually came from. So we have an old tradition of Islam within the Yoruba, which does not come from Usman Dan Fodio and that level of Islamization. So these things have to be taken note of also, I think.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that, because Islam didn't come by force to the Yorubas. He made a great point. It came from Mali. It didn't come by force. So it's a different approach to Islam, which is very Yoruba culture. And that's one thing I respect about Yorubas. But thanks, Scott.
Yeah, but Yoruba culture is that Islamic culture is Arab culture. So how can it be very Yoruba culture?
Yeah.
That's Arab culture, which is fine. So how can Arab culture be Yoruba culture?
And they argue that they African.
That can still be argued, Dinus. I understand where you're coming from.
I would say African Islamic culture that I've seen is in Senegal with the Mura community. That's like it's still Arabic, but it's African. But the The Yoruba Muslims I see, they're Arabs.
No, man. The Yorubas aren't Arabs at all.
I said the Yoruba Muslims.
No. Well, you see, within my family, there are Yorubas who are Muslim, there are Yorubas who are Christian, and there are Yorubas who follow the Ifa tradition, and some mix it all together. The fact of the matter is, the way the Yoruba people entertain and come into all of these religions, including Christianity, is with a distinct Yoruba flavor. If you don't recognize that, that's fair enough. But I don't know how you are saying we understand that there is Islamization.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example.
Hold on, can I chip in?
I'll give you an example. I'm gonna pass it to Titi Olua. I'm gonna give you an example. The what's the name of this Oba in I think he's the Olu of I forgot. He's Muslim. There was a time that he wanted nothing to do with traditional Yoruba African religion because of him being Islamic. It's just
which Oba
if you read, I mean, this is the contradiction. If you read Islam, if you study Christianity, it's clear that it's anti-African spirituality.
Yep.
Prince.
Can I ask you a question, Dynas? Dynas, can I ask you a question?
It's called shut up.
I would like to ask Dynas a question, if I may. Dynas, may I ask you?
Yeah, go.
Thank you. In your search, especially when it comes to any level of spirituality, be it Christianity, Islam, or Ifa, are you actually searching for truth, or are you searching for more affirmation of being an African? Can you answer?
For me, it's just getting back to the root. I guess more affirmation of being African for me is getting back to the root of who we truly are before being in contact with Europeans or Arabs.
Interesting.
And just for me, I mean, it's clear, and nothing against Islam, nothing against Christianity. It's clear in their Bible, in their books, it's anti-African spirituality.
You already closed the deal when you said that it originated in the Arabian Peninsula. It didn't originate in Yoruba land.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't originate that those religions are foreign. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're foreign. So I'm just trying to figure out how can we say Islam is Yoruba culture.
And when Christianity came into Nigeria, really quick, I'll say quick. When Christianity,
let me pass it to TTL Lou after that, because if you can be short, please.
When Christianity came into Nigeria, right, it was through the colonizers, and they were clear about taking your culture out of the picture so that they can control you. So it's different than how Islam came into Nigeria. So that's, along with the colonial education, also the missionaries were set up, and this is the part where, you know, you guys have to really deal with that. Okay,
TT Lua, go ahead.
Yeah, just like, what is his name? I'm gonna backtrack on you. That is true. It's like Christianity came through colonization, through the European. The thing with the European thing is we did have the Jews, whom I've always, the actual Jewish people, whom I've always followed us. They have always studied us, know whom we are as a tribe, individual, as the Yoruba. No, I'm not even gonna say as Omoluabi. We have another name that we are called.
Omoluabi.
Omoluabi.
Well said, madam.
The Most High has a way of showing me things. It's so funny because I was actually also getting knowledge about the Ifa religion in general on my own perspective, because I've always said that I came from three households. I came from a household of Christianity, Islam, and indigenous father. I found out he was actually practicing the original African religion. So I'm 3 in 1. Okay, but I was raised Islamic, raised by a grandmother that is Christian, so I'm able to have a little insight. That's why I kind of like study this different religion. We were colonized by Christian. We were also colonized. Okay, Mali also have their own indigenous religion. They were also colonized by Islam. Okay, we have to not forget the Arabs. They colonized us with their religion before they start mixing and becoming more like palm-colored people. Okay, when they colonized around the Sahel area, Sahel area, all of those Moroccos, etc., they colonized them. When they colonized them, they forced them, of course, into the jihad war that we call it. If you're not Muslim, that's how jihad came into play. If you're not a Muslim, we're gonna kill up your people, or we're gonna kill up your people, take your children, take your wife, etc., etc. So eventually, you know, they have to either turn into being Muslims or turn into being Muslim or kind of get killed off and take their town. Okay, so that was the option for them when it came to the Islamic part. They didn't really have any other option, so they have to convert into Islam. Our ancestors did have a particular tradition thing that they were practicing, and then moving down, of course, they took, of course, some slaves, etc. They took it back to Arabian Peninsula, of course. But the thing is, they couldn't really procreate there because you know what they did to our ancestors. They have to kind of disable them as male, if it was male. And the female, of course, were used as other two. When it now came to Christianity, of course, Big Brother was saying, "Oh, I did this to the African," and the Christians were already, they knew about the Messiah. Okay, that's why I said the Messiah is quite interesting because we have in Yoruba culture we have what is his name? I was actually saying this. Somebody that practice Ifa religion, please tell me. It's bite my tongue. I don't remember his name.
Babalawo.
Babalawo.
Huh?
Babalawo.
Not Babalawo or Orishani. It's not Babalawo. Shalom consider. Huh?
Iyalorisha, Babalorisha.
No. It's one of the deities. No, it's
Obatala, Orumila, Shango.
Oh, she's talking about
Orumila. Okay, sorry. But anyway, so we have something similar because the Messiah, of course, they call him Jesus. And the Messiah was considered, and I look at how the Orumila also was interpreted. And mind you, in each Yoruba household, you have I call them ancestors. They were considered deity because of the importance we put into them. You know, for me personally, when I'm working spiritual with my father, I ask, it's considered an ancestor. So they are ancestors. They were not supposed to be worshipped as we worship them now. So being that Orumila has almost same similarities as, I don't want to compare him to the Savior, our big brother. I always say that the Messiah. Some call him Jesus, Yeshua. Some will call him the Hebrew Israelite or Yahushua. Some will call him. So
he's even greater.
I'm telling you, when I'm saying
greater than Jesus.
What did you say?
He's even more divine than Jesus because he was not born of humans. He came directly from the other dimension, sent by God, Olodumare.
Eledumare. Yeah, they said Orumila was sent by Eledumare. Okay, but there's a reason why the Yeshua part was also there's a reason behind that as well. But to get to the point, you know, when I was looking at these similarities, I would call it, and that's why I'm questioning, like, wait, did we copy or did they copy? And
well
we cannot
said.
copy if we are the original. You get what I'm saying?
Well said, madam.
Thank you. So this, you know, when they bring that Christianity, because they knew about our own worship, okay, they knew about these different deities, these different spiritual realms, these different kings that we had, so they were able to conquer us through the religious text. Because even if you look at some old houses, I'm talking about, if you go back in history, I'm saying, yeah, go deep. If you go back in history, you will see some houses were even built like that of the, I will not say the Israelis, but our forefathers knew who they were.
Can I quickly add, madam? Can I quickly add to this? Can I just quickly add? I just want to add to this for the note of those who are not looking for the truth, I suppose, and looking for more black confirmation. Our history has been stolen. I will begin like that, and I would add that when the Europeans came to West Africa, what they found is that all of the men were circumcised, especially when they came to Nigeria. When finding this, in today's studies, the Yorubas and Igbos and the southern part of Nigeria are the most circumcised men in the whole world, more than any Christian nation, more than any Arab nation. Now, this comes to ask, who were those people who were circumcising themselves? Who were those Malians before the Arab conquest? Who were they? Because sometimes we're not trying to answer real questions. We're trying to defend against our oppression. We understand that we've been oppressed. There's no argument about that. But what is the truth is what anybody should be seeking, not just tap on the back because you're African. That doesn't mean anything.
The truth is in the history, brother. The truth is in the history. Because if you study the history,
And
you
that,
know the truth.
and that is what you just said is the fact. For every religion, whether Islam, whether Christianity, you must know yourself. Because even if you die, in order to go to the next realm, you must know who you are. Because they will ask you, you know. They will ask.
Hey, let me read this super chat first. KKs, what are the moral prescriptions of African spirituality? Do they even have a written text? And Christianity was in Africa before it was in Europe, but who brought it? But who brought it to Africa? That's the question.
Who brought it to West Africa? It was already in Africa.
No. Who brought it to Africa? What do you mean?
No, the Ethiopians had Ethiopians and the Coptic. Wait, let me put it to you. The Coptic church in Egypt.
You had missionaries you had non-African missionaries who brought Christianity to Ethiopia.
I beg your pardon. Axer was a Christian nation before anywhere in Europe. What are you talking about?
But who brought the religion to Ethiopia?
They brought it themselves. They were in.
No, they did not. That's not true. Non-black missionaries brought Christianity to Ethiopia.
And who were they? Who were these non-black?
I'll tell you right now. Let me answer the super chat first, and I'll tell you right now. So to answer your super chat, I have this book right here. It's the Sacred Ifa Oracle, and then also you have Odu Ifa as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me pull this up. But go ahead and keep talking. But let me pull this up.
I'm curious if Christianity and Islam came from Africa. Did Hinduism come from Africa as well?
Yeah, I'm just curious because when
can I come in here? I think we are
according to Ethiopia, they say
I think we are making a big mistake here. Buddhism, are you talking about Christianity or are you talking about religion? Christianity, there is difference between Christianity and there's difference between Abrahamic religion. When you talk about Abrahamic religion, which is before Christianity, it has been in Africa even before anybody steps in foot into Africa. So what we call Abrahamic religion,
but the Christianity that you have today, the Christianity that West Africa and Africa was fed during the slave trade and other invasions was the edited version. It went through 300-400 years of different edits, and so that Christianity is different than the Christianity, the Coptic Christianity that the Ethiopians have, that started in Egypt, and then once Egypt fell.
According to the Ethiopians, though, don't you go by what
let me read this. Here we go. Saint Frumentius is who brought Christianity to Ethiopia.
And who is that person? Where is he from?
Where is he from? Let's see here. Saint Frumentius is from. Yeah, he's white as hell.
While you're reading that, I just want to say this is what I was talking about. That those religions are so powerful that we can't put them down. So we would rather.
Yeah, we can't, and that's the thing.
We want to try to find ourselves in them, and say we create, or they come from here. Are we sure that they called it literally the word Christianity in Ethiopia? Are we sure of that?
No.
That's why I asked the question: where did Hinduism come from? Because nobody wanted to claim Hinduism.
Okay, so
no, it's not that nobody wanted to claim Hinduism.
What Mike? So he's from Lebanon. He's from what is present day Lebanon.
Well, okay. You see, what we're talking about is still what they augment to be the Middle East. You see, I understand how we look at the world today, But we have to understand that when we're talking about 2,000 to 6,000 years ago, the demographics of the planet were far different than they are today, as you can well tell from being an American. If you're talking about 1,000 years ago, none of the so-called travelers, foreigners to that part of the world were there. There were a different set of people there. So is the same in that place that they call the Middle East, all the way up into India.
But
There
there
is
are
something.
writings, though, right?
There
There's writings
something.
about it.
There is something called the Indus Valley, which was now modern day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. In this Indus Valley, that's a black African history that is there, that is as old as Egypt.
Yeah, but we're talking.
What I'm trying to put to you, sir, is that this demographic was there.
But again, we're talking. So Christianity was brought to Ethiopia around the year 330. What was this, AD? So the people that are currently in Lebanon now, those are the people that was there back then.
That's not what Professor Clark and James Small say. They have a whole nother history, which I would go along with that better than if you did a surface Google. I would search for some more African centered legitimate scholars.
No, but again, it's just like Chindaji said. We are so obsessed with these Abrahamic religions that we have to find a way to see ourselves in them. I don't get it.
It's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as that. That's why I put to you, there is the truth, and then there is a black conscious thinking. The black conscious thinking is not always ultimately taking all of us to the point of truth. The whole idea of being black in this world is extremely difficult. We all understand that. We are black people. We understand that we have had our lives stolen from us. We understand this tragedy, but it doesn't take away from that there is a truth. If I can just land on this point, all I want to say is that Sheikh Anta Diop was the first African to challenge these MFers as to who are these people that we call Egyptian. Who are they? And when he challenged it and then he did his studies, it came out for the first time that these people were black.
This is the point, brother. The point is.
Yeah, but you're moving the goalpost now. We're talking about who brought Christianity to Ethiopia.
Right, and if you
the eunuch, they say the eunuch did.
What we're trying to say is, me and Titus have the understanding. We have the understanding of where it originated. We're saying that that's not important. We're not saying that we don't have that knowledge. We know about Sheikh Anta Diop and all of these things. We're saying that where it originated and what it is now is so different that we don't even need to be like. You're trying to, it's like you just got the knowledge and you're trying to say, well, it's come from us. Like, yeah, we've been there. We passed that stage of we were trying to claim it because we know it's something completely different. And we want to put it in the trash where it needs to be.
But hold on. When you say put it in the trash, you're talking about erasing 600, 700 years of culture that's been in Yoruba land, right? Yoruba, they've been practicing Islam for a long time. It's part of their DNA now. Hold on, I'm gonna land here.
No,
Islam. Hold on, I'm gonna land here. Hold on, I'm gonna land.
Allow him to speak.
I didn't cut the mic off. What I'm saying is, Islam has been in Africa longer than Suya. And y'all, everybody loves suya, love eating suya way longer than suya. Right?
I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat suya.
Come on, man. Let me tell you something. We had two options. It's either we take Islam or we took Christianity because they weren't going to let us practice our own. That was the option. So it's not as long as Islam. It's not as long as our tradition. Because we still practice in our tradition. If you see any Yoruba today, they will tell in any Yoruba household, I don't know what that household is. There's always three religions in that household. Traditional, Islam, and Christianity. Even that guy told you, I have traditional, Islam, and Christianity. And I'm a bread of traditional, Islam, and Christianity. And we don't practice Islam like the Arab people. Okay? We don't practice like them. And mind you, the Quran, when it was written, if you go back and read the Quran, because I'm telling you, I'm read to all Arabic school. If you go back and read the Quran and everything, the Quran is written by let me tell you, it's going to surprise you, by the Jews for what is his name? Muhammad. It wasn't written by Muhammad.
Right.
It was written by
Muhammad was
the Jews.
black, but also there's this thing called hadith. Do you know what
Can I say
hadith is?
something? Can I
You know what a hadith
Oh
is?
man, let the guy finish. Let him finish. Let him
Yep,
go ahead, Charles.
I know what a hadith
Okay,
is.
so
Yeah.
so hadith is a whole set of rules that are outside of the Quran that is around, not totally around.
Hello? Oh, is it me?
That's not a good.
It's not
That's
totally
not a good
around
description.
slavery,
That's
but
not a good
Muhammad
description
had
of the hadith.
slaves. Muhammad was a black man. His grandmother was from Africa, right? But he also Bilal
where's his
and
grandma
his
from?
students
Where's
were.
Oh, he wasn't.
His grandmother was from Ethiopia.
And a black man.
Muhammad's grandmother was from Ethiopia.
I don't know, Charles. I don't know about that one, Charles. I don't know about that one, man. I don't know,
Muhammad
man.
was like, why would
But
they
he was
tell
supposed
you
to be
the singer was black?
He specifically said the
Like
man
they
that was a
said
black one was
Jesus
a
was
slave.
black.
Was the
Now,
slave
I
that
might
he
be
took from
confusing
his
Bilal.
uncle.
I think I'm confusing Bilal with Muhammad.
You're
Bilal was
confusing Bilal. Bilal is African.
Bilal.
Bilal is black. Bilal
Yeah,
is
right.
black.
But
Bilal is
Muhammad had
black.
slaves, and hadith is a whole set of laws that are outside of the Quran that is basically Arabic culture. You cannot separate the Arabic culture from Islam. And
It's
this
not.
is why
Look.
Africans
The
start practicing
hadith. The
Sufi.
hadith is supposedly the words or the ways of Muhammad. That is the hadith.
Right.
So
That's
the
outside
reason
of the
why
Quran.
what
It's not in the Quran.
your explanation was terrible.
But it's not in the Quran is my point. It's
Okay.
a set of laws that are outside of the Quran.
Well, it's something
he had
whereby
slaves.
if you are looking at the books, or the Abrahamic religion as so spoken, the Quran in how it's presented takes on with the Hadith an understanding that there are two books to explain one. Whereas if you're taking the Gospel, you only have the Gospel. The Gospel proves itself. Why does a Quran need another book to prove the Quran? It's ridiculous. Anyway, that was ridiculous.
Dynast, I have a couple of things to say. I mean, I've been cool for a while. Let me know when I can speak, man.
Go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
I would suggest that there's a book by the Ogun brothers, the twins. It's called The History of the Yoruba. Everybody can download it for free PDF and read it. It was published in the 1800s, and it talks about the Yoruba history, culture.
I have it right here.
Oh, you got a copy. Okay, beautiful.
Wonderful.
I have it
I
right here.
suggest everyone read it and get the background, because they're saying some stuff that is not historically correct as far as I know. Secondly, you started off with why is it Yoruba religion, as you put it, is more readily interesting to the people in the Americas, is because in a way it's the people in America are able to see it as a way of life and not as a religion. When we think in terms of the thunder, the lightning, the moon, the stars, we think in terms of them under Orisha terms. And that gives us a different look at the world. When we see the wind and the storms and the tornadoes, we think of it in Orisha terms, which gives us a different view of the world and a different position in it. And that's what we see it, and it's explained in the Yoruba pantheon very, very interestingly and very easily to be forces of nature, not necessarily what people would call religious deities, but more, forces of nature and how they work, their characteristics, stuff of that. So I learned Orisha as science, the science of voodoo. And that's how we look at it, as the science. And one other thing, I would suggest to people who are into Ifa, I would suggest you look at, I'm not to say much about it, but I suggest you look at I Ching of China, I-CHING, I Ching. It's a method of divination that is very similar to Ifa divination.
Can I ask a quick question, sir?
Please.
Thank you very much for your summation. It's wonderful, wonderful. Can I just ask, this Chinese and Yoruba similarity, is it shaped in China as a round ball with certain specifics all the way through it. Have you seen that?
It can be described as that. That's you're talking about the Tao. Yeah, it can be described as that. So when you see it,
It's wonderful that you are making this this similarity, because it's something that is very deep. These are the only two in the whole world who have gotten that accuracy upon the, as you call it, the forces of nature. And this is so specific. I'm very happy that you bring that up.
What is your name? Who are you? I see. Who are you? What is your name?
I'm Jagun of Jagun. It's my title from my father. We are of the Ilaje of Nigeria, the Ben Ephraim. You understand? So this is us. This is who we are.
There are other groups that have it. It's just that they hold a different aspect of nature, like the Dogon. The Dogon have it as well, but their focus was more astrophysics. But what's the tragedy is that we're not looking into the traditions of the Hausa and the Fulani and the other ethnic groups that are all around, and we're losing them as a result of Christianity taking over. But all of these smaller ethnic groups that have this understanding of nature have a certain aspect, their focus was a little different, or maybe a lot of different.
Okay.
And when we lose that, we lose an understanding of nature, which is the truth. That's the truth. See, the truth is the truth. I understand what you mean by universal truth in all religions. There's a common thread that runs through all religion that is a universal truth. I get that. But what Dynast is talking about and what I'm talking about is coming into this knowledge of history, that we find this truth about who we are as a people, and that when we go deep into that, why do you need Christianity when you got Ifa or you got the Dogon system or whatever? Not Christianity and Islam can't add anything to it. It is a fragment, and it's on a periphery of what we have.
Okay, all right. Let me pass it to Larry. Go ahead, Larry.
Dynast, thanks. I wanted to ask you a question because I asked you at the start, why Black Americans are more drawn to Yoruba culture, and you were educating me because I couldn't understand it. From your research, is there anything else apart from the spirituality that draws them close to the Yoruba culture, in your opinion? Because all I've heard so far is the spirituality.
Well, it's the culture. I mean, but the spirituality is the culture.
Right.
It's part of the culture. It's not the only.
Well, I mean, it plays a huge part in the culture, and that, from what I experience when I go to, especially Osun State, it plays a huge part in the culture. So
right.
So it's not. There's no music, no cuisine.
Well, I mean that's all part of it. I mean that's we're attracted by the spirituality. And then the music and the batadra, that's all in one. It's all part of it. It's all connected.
Which is what makes it different than religion. And so if you took Ifa out of Yoruba culture, you would take probably 40% of the culture would be gone. If you took Ifa, meaning the spiritual practices, all of the stuff that's involved in Orisha Ifa, probably 40% of the entire culture would be taken out of Yoruba culture.
So why are you saying that? It don't make any sense to me. Why are you even saying that?
It doesn't make sense to me either. All it says is that you're beaten down by Christianity, so much so that you can't stand anybody who follows that route. That's not up to you. That's not your business. If you don't want to follow it, you don't follow it. It's straight. You don't have to ask everybody else not to. It's there. You see, when we're speaking about where these religions came from, we could say it's the Middle East if we want to be like that, but we could say that is actually Northeast Africa. We could actually say that Africa stretches way into India. We could say so many things according to history. But the fact of the matter is, worldwide things can't be ignored. That's the biggest thing there. If there's something is worldwide and we're ignoring it, and then it comes to slap us in the back of our neck like it has done already, then I think we're foolish. You see, when
homosexuality is a
excuse me, sir.
thing, but
Excuse me, if I may just land on this. If I may land on this. When it comes to things of philosophy, things of science, things of nature, they bring themselves to bear in one way or the other. Once they come to bear, It is for us to deal with it as men and not scarper like a goat. You understand? We're to look it in the eye and deal with it. All this fear that comes from Black Americans about Christianity, it is pathetic. Stand up like men, for goodness sake.
What's your point?
Well, I've made my point. If you don't understand it, let it go over your head.
Can I make
Let
my
it go
own
over your
point
head.
now?
No, let me say something here now.
And then I'm gonna pass it to Elvis after you. Go ahead, Chidi. I'm pass it to Elvis.
You know, if you haven't been to Igbo land, you will be confused about Christianity. The Igbos, we practice mostly traditional religion and Christianity. Why do we have much Christians in Igbo land and every other place in Nigeria? Is because, like I said, there is difference between Christianity and Abrahamic religion. Religion is that.
Well, Christianity is the Abrahamic religion. What?
Yeah, but the Abraham religions, Christianity started from Abraham religion.
No, it did not.
So before Christ, there was a religion. Before Christ, there was a religion.
Right.
And that religion, we are people transcending directly to God, worshiping God directly. And without no Christianity started from Christ. Christ means Jesus Christ. So before Jesus Christ, there was already a religion. Islam.
Well, the Coptics in Ethiopia have their books are older than Jesus Christ, so their Christianity is older
when you
than
call
Jesus
it,
Christ.
so when you now call it Christianity, then it is wrong because Christianity has to do with Christ. Before Christ, there was already a religion. So when we say people say the Igbos have Jewish inclination, it has to do with tradition. Our tradition and how we worship God is the same. When you take away the Christ aspect of it, when you take away the born of Jesus Christ from that period to backwards, everything is the same. We
Then why
circumcise
practice
the 8th day.
Christianity then? Why are you practicing it then? If it's the same,
Yeah, because because let me learn then. The white man came to Igbo land and they saw our religion and they came with Christianity. And we saw this Christianity without outside of Christ about inside of it. It is just the same as the religion we have been practicing before they came. So we circumcise on the 8th day. The Jewish circumcise on the 8th day. So these are the things.
They don't.
If you have to first of all go to Igbo land to understand the religion, the traditional religion, before you can begin to make comparisons.
So what's the need of practicing Christianity then? I'm confused.
It's because of the coming of the
I'll tell you why you're confused.
It was forced upon us.
You're only confused. Sorry, my brother. Sorry.
And then let me do this. Jagon, I'm sorry, Elvis. Jagon, then Cosmic Chaos. I forgot him. Then Elvis. Go ahead, Jagon. And then you got 30 seconds. Hurry up. Then we got to pass it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All I'm putting to everybody is peaceably that there is a practice of a practice of a practice. And within the Yoruba and Igbo and southern Nigeria as a whole, we were practicing circumcision before the Oyumbodi man came to the shore. And what he saw in the way we were behaving, they knew that we were of Jewish extract, what they call Jewish extract. We will say Hebrew. We will say Hebrew Israelite in today's parlance. But the fact of the matter is, the fact that we did these practices that were not similar to the Jewish, they were before the Jewish, as they call in themselves in Europe. You understand? Now, I'm not making any bones or claims. I'm saying we have to think that the practice of cutting the foreskin from a man's penis, of a boy's penis, at the time 8 days after birth is significant. And we have to understand this significance, as opposed to just shouting for or bad play. We have to come to this place.
And my brother, let me help you here.
I got to pass the mic. Let me pass the card. Go ahead, Cosmic.
Let me just
let me pass the Cosmic.
Let me understand this.
Go ahead, Cosmic.
All right. Okay. We're talking about the history of Christianity. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about the history of Christianity, and based on what the master's teachers have taught us, right? Christianity is nothing but monotheism, the idea that there's only one God, right? And where did monotheism first started from? It started from
Africa.
Kemet. No, it started from Kemet. Yes, Africa.
The Yoruba believe in one God too. Belief in one God. The Dogon believe in the belief of one God.
The Dogon are from Egypt. The Dogon
but the Yoruba do too.
Hey man, let them finish. Go ahead, Cosmic.
So now, who started monotheism? Akhenaten. When Akhenaten started monotheism, he started worshiping Aten. He then sent his priest. Don't forget that Ethiopia, Kemet is the daughter of Ethiopia. So anything that is happening in Kemet is definitely happening in Ethiopia. So now, later on, he had priests called Pantheas and Botias. Pantheas and Botias later went into Ethiopia and started Judaism, which was called Judaism. So that is where all that started from. Then the version of Christianity that we are using today started in the Council of Nicaea by Constantine. After Kemet has been invaded, Alexandria, all those Greeks and Romans, they stole all the scrolls. They stole all the Egyptian scrolls and scripts. They went back and, they rewrote it and they brought you Christianity. So that's really the Christianity you guys are worshiping today. So that's really just the history of it.
Okay, let me pass it. Go ahead, Elvis.
Thank you, Dennis, and hello to the panel. Not to be too much of a downer here, but the Yorubas.
Elvis, that's what you do, man. That's you are. But go ahead. Just go ahead.
All right, thank you. The Yorubas and the Igbos are not, Jews as we know them to be.
Tell him, Elvis. Tell him.
Oh God, Elvis, do I agree with you? Oh my God, I agree with Elvis for what is going on here? I agree with Elvis for what time? Go ahead, Elvis. Keep cooking. Elvis. Keep cooking.
And when people ask the question about Ethiopians practicing monotheism as we know it, we have to go back to Menelik, whether it was a myth or reality. You remember the King Taharka in the Bible who went and helped the Israelites, to fight a war against I think it was the Egyptians or so. So they've had a long relationship with Israel over the years. And when Solomon, King Solomon was in power, he attracted women from all over the world. You have over 1,000 concubines, right? And you had this queen from Ethiopia who went there and slept with him and, presumably had a child with him and brought the child back into Ethiopia, which was Menelik the First, as they call him. And along came some advisors from Solomon. So they started practicing Judaism. That was before Christ came. This was during the Solomonic dynasty. So they had that Judaism, as we would call it, in Ethiopia. And eventually they transcended into Christianity. So it's been there through Menelik, and
that's my understanding.
Yes.
Very well said.
And then quickly, not to correct everybody here, but the Hadith, right? People talk about the Hadiths, like somebody rightly said, these are the sayings of Muhammad, right? But in the Hadiths, you have three different categories. You have Sahih, which means it's authentic. The chain of narration has never been broken. It's authentic. You have Da'if, which means the chain of narration was either weak by people who was not as trusted as those who, that was Sahih. And then you have Hassan, which means like, so kind of okay. So when people talk about Christianity and Islam, you have to understand Christianity, quote unquote, predicts Islam by 600 years. And like Muhammad said, he spread Islam with the sword. So even if you go to Nigeria and you take somebody like Uthman Danfodio, who, spread Islam through the Hausa with force and jihad and killed a lot of people and established the Sokoto, caliphate, and then spread that into Yoruba land. So you have a lot of Yorubas, almost like 40 or 50% of Yorubas who are Muslims, spread it through violence and conquest. So when people talk about, circumcision in my country, in Liberia, where we circumcise, our kids, I was circumcised, at a very young age as a baby. But that's not proof that we're Israelites. And the reason why I would say this in the Bible, it tells you the signs of the Israelites. Number one, you must keep the Sabbath day holy as a sign of the covenant between God and the people. So if you're not worshiping God on Saturday and not doing anything, doing no kind of laborious work, that's one sign that you're not genuinely a Jew because you have forgotten your covenant with God. Number two is a sign of blessing. It says that the children of Israel will always be the head, never the tail. Whether it's economically, whether it's educational, whether it's militarily, are we in Africa, especially in West Africa, are we the head of anything in this world in terms of power, whether it's economic power, military power, intellectual power? So these signs, if it's not upon us, we cannot turn ourselves to say we're the Jews. Because if you believe
I
in God,
disagree.
They made up
fine.
a religion in Kemet and was disgruntled, and the leadership said, "If you don't like it here, get the fuck out." And then they left and went to Israel.
Well, hold
That's
on,
what happened.
one mic. Elvis, are you done?
No, I'm just going to finish up in the
Go
next 2 seconds here. So for me, there's this old saying that there's nothing new under the sun. And for those of you who study mystery teachings, the secret teachings of all ages and regions, there's always secret teachings, esoteric and esoteric teachings that people want to teach you about how to secretly, get in touch with angels, how to secretly, unlock your destiny and things like that. We have it in Africa, we had it in Egypt, we had it in Greece, we had it in Rome. So these things, and even in China, like you're saying. So these things are not unique to Africa when we're talking about quote unquote African spirituality or traditional religions. They're from all regions of this planet, and these people are teaching pretty much the same thing. It's how to use quote unquote magic or some scientific, traditional means to get things done, which is if it's through Ifad, if it's through, other means from Egypt and other places. So there's nothing new. These things just have different names, but they're the same. They come from the same source. And I'll tell you what that source is, but I'll pass the mic.
Kazorian, go ahead, Kazorian. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, shout out. I believe that African spirituality made a mistake, and I think the mistake that we made is that we didn't understand, or rather, we didn't care about the expansionism propaganda that the rest of the races did. Right? You had the people from Mongol. They expanded the Mongol Empire, one of the largest empires, the British Empire, another example. Right? Now we have the American Empire, and of course, you've had so many other ones in between. And I think actually Africans, whether it's because we're more spiritually aligned or because we lack ambition, we don't like to spread our own propaganda around the whole world, right? Look at Ethiopian Christianity. They barely spread, even within the so-called country that is called Ethiopia today, right? It's only recently, after they were exposed to the British and then obviously the Italians, that they decided to colonize the southern nations people, aka the Oromo and the Nilotes and the Omotic people, to make a nation state. So I'm just trying to say that we Africans, yes, you claim that we're more spiritual, but whatever that's worth, we do need to do better, right? We do need to actually start evangelizing, right? The lack of evangelism, I believe, leads us to a lack of progression. We are stuck within this whole narrative of we don't actually move forward. So Africans, we have this problem, whether it's Ifa or some kind of Igbo divinations. It doesn't really matter to me. I want us to start evangelizing and conquering the world.
So are you? Yeah, you're
That's my
suggesting we
idea.
become imperialists and use our spiritual traditions to affirm that imperialism all over the world. That's what you're suggesting, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Yes, that's my
And that
suggestion.
I know, like there's
Go ahead.
something called, while religion was created as a way to conquer the world, religion is a tool. When it comes to like the spirituality part of it, when it comes to the Ifa and the I believe Odini Orini or something like that for the Igbos, I don't want to say it wrongly, please correct me. When it comes to this like this, it's an agreement. It's not like religion where, oh, I'm converted to a Christian today, I'm a Muslim today. No, it's an agreement. You're in an agreement with the higher being above you. Okay, so that agreement cannot say, oh, I want to spread this to the whole entire world. Not everyone is ready to to amend that kind of agreement. If you are going to be in agreement with the higher being, I mean, you are sacrificing most of everything that you are ready to sacrifice.
Right.
And I'm
It's
sure when she came
juxtaposed.
very knows about this, right?
You're right. You're right. It's juxtaposed to spiritual practices because it's a whole nother thing, and that's why we're in a situation we're in now. Is because we're the righteous, the true righteous, just people who practice ma'at. That's who we are as a people. In fact, one of the things that we strayed from that is part of our problem is we strayed from the parent culture teachings of the Torah, which had women involved in every important decision-making aspect of life. That's a crucial thing that needs to be reinstated. We need to reinstate that egalitarianism when it comes to women, and also be more in tune with nature, getting back to our traditions. And Christianity and Islam can't facilitate that. And for the very reason that my brother just finished talking about, not because it was meant to use as an imperialistic tool, but because it is negative. It's negative toward African spirituality and any other types of spiritual systems, indigenous spiritual systems. It has things in it that says it's pagan, it's devil worship, it's idolatry, it's all these other things, right?
Wait, did you say what you said? The Twa were practicing egalitarianism? Was it the Twa you said?
The Twa, the Koine Asan people, the women made decisions in every important aspect of life, and we lost that. The Niger Congo groups that came from that parent culture lost that as time went by, and what further exacerbated that is coming in contact with Abrahamic religions, because the Abrahamic religions are not void of Islam is not void of Arabic culture.
So wait, so when the Khoi and the San are migrating, the man and the woman both have leadership roles.
You go to the Congo now, and the people that live in the forest, the short people live in the forest, that's how their society is structured today.
And the same with the ones in Southern Africa?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, and you're saying that was the original way before all the other tribes decided to do something else?
No, I'm saying we strayed from that. And this is also part of the problem with before the white folks came and started that slave trade, we were warring with each other already then. So it made it easy for them to come in and do the shit they did to us. And then before that, we had the empires, and we were infighting with the empires, within the empires.
If I may quickly just put this in, I think we're being a little bit unfair and disingenuous in so many ways. You see, if we understand what was happening in West Africa and the difference between what they call the Negro and what they call Bantu, there was something that they called a Bantu expansion, which apparently happened coming in from Nigeria, whereby the eastern part of Nigeria entered into Cameroon and going further down Gabon, all the way down into South Africa. And throughout this time, there were waves and waves of it over hundreds of years. The people that they encountered were rather smaller people of a different nature than those of the Western African nature. So they took these people over, they ran over their land, and they brought different levels of farming, different levels of technology. They were more advanced in so many ways. That took them all the way to South Africa, where we find these Twa and these San people who are very well mixed within the South African population. If you take a look at any South African, you can see in their eyes how they're very well mixed with the San people. Now, this took place over 100 years. You cannot look at this thing through Black American eyes. I'm afraid that's what you keep mistakenly doing. And it's awful because it doesn't give or pay any attention. It doesn't pay any attention to what actually happened. I'm listening to you people and I'm just listening. And you're not really taking anything on board. You're just staying with your position of being Black. I don't know if you have a mirror in your house. Go and look in the mirror, confirm that you're Black, and then come back to the table, my brother.
Can I respond to that really quickly? Let me say this. There are
can I come in after you, man? Yeah.
There are some things that as African Americans that have developed this academia of Black studies or Africana studies, right, over the last probably 80, 90 years. And even you can even say a little bit before that, there's some things that we can miss because of not speaking an African language and being in the culture, right? However, because of that, we're aware of that, and what we've done and tried to do is to go deep into the history, and so even though we're looking at it from the eyes of having been influenced or in contact with Europeans, that we have it's formed a new culture. We are a new culture, but we've gone further back into this research to find out more about who we are as a people, because we've been removed as a people. Now, I would say it would do us well to be able to look at this, to read the hieroglyphics from an aspect of being African, because our interpretation of it will be even deeper, which is why we'd always look to Theophil Dobinga, who is one of the leading authorities on hieroglyphics, or Medu Neter. So I agree with you in that sense, but we also have contributed to this body of knowledge and reminding other people, reminding you guys,
let me be
that it's important to go
if I
back to
can
the
very
ancient
quickly.
history. It's very,
My brother,
very important.
I'm agreeing with you, and I'm wanting to just let you understand where I'm coming from as an African living in the UK. My brothers from America have been leading the way fantastically for not 1 year, 2 years, for 300-400 years of hardcore leadership. I am not here to dare to scratch upon the dynamism of the Black American and the African American power. I'm not here for that, my brother. I understand and salute the power that the Black Americans have done to the trauma, against the trauma and horror that has been thrust upon them. My brother, I am with you. You understand? All I am saying is that on this planet Earth, every last single one of us is ill. We are sick. We are suffering from all kinds of dementia, if you like. And what I want to suggest is that maybe with the depth of knowledge and studies we have, you see this aspect of black and white, it can interrupt our intellect. And that is what I'm opposing. And I'm asking you to take this matter on board, because it's a serious thing. What we're doing out here is a life and death situation. We're looking for the next 20 years to somehow fall in our hands and for us to manipulate the way forward extremely well. If we don't, we know what's going on. We know what's happening around the world. It's a pile of doo-doo. So whilst we understand that, we have to be coming together to look for the truth. I haven't got time for anyone's ego. So that's where I'm coming from, my brother.
I mean, Jagon, where I agree with Kaizo is we need to find ways, something that's gonna move us forward from where we are. We know obviously a lot of religion came to us, and we already had our spirituality. Of course, we all have, even as we speak, those spirituality have never left us in Africa. I understand for the African American brothers who, obviously they left the continent years ago, they want to connect back to the spirituality of their continent. I absolutely agree with that. For us, the Africans in the continent, we have no excuse. We need to stop making excuse, and Christianity, Islam, and all. We need to find one that works for us. Listen to me, I'm a Muslim, right? If Islam, if there's another system that is going to be replaced to Islam that would move us forward in the continent, bro, I will be with you. The reality is, I don't think we're actually wise enough to see beyond it, right? Because we need to be expansionists. We need to look back to the history. For example, let's compare Islam and Christianity to start with. Those two Abrahamic religions that came into the continent, right? Let's see which one have benefited us in the past, and which one actually have impacted us negatively, and actually see, which one we actually move on to, because the reality is, the African spirituality was there, and they brought two different religions into the continent, who actually that made us, where we are. But for another fact, you live in the UK, right? The British people, the English people weren't originally Christians. These people were pagans, right? Even if you look at the churches, these people worship paganism. You've been to Stonehenge in England, right? They actually used to be pagans. Well, Christianity came, right? And they followed Christianity. Did that make them lost out? No. It's about connecting to the right thing that actually will help us move forward instead of having
Can I interject, please?
Yeah,
Well,
go on. Make it quick.
Let me do
Make
this.
it quick so I can finish it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for me personally, I looked at the Almoravid dynasty. Out of all the dynasties that happened in Africa, Mali Empire, Uyo, the Songhai, all these other empires, none of these dynasties actually enable us to go outside the continent and actually establish something and export our culture, our ways, like the Almoravid dynasty. People can say what they like, can come up here and actually prove me wrong. But I know the Almoravid dynasty enabled the West African people, the Fula and the Manding group and the Berber Tuaregs to expand to Spain and Portugal, for centuries. That enabled us to have a breathing space, right? I know we always hate when the Islam coming to West Africa, but however, when Islam came, this were the time we were able to do things. And those days, Islam and science used to work hand in hand. It's when Islam got rid of science out of the religion, and actually turned to just spirituality. It's when Islam, it crumbled. Islam crumbled since then, and also even us in Africa, we actually fell apart because we just worship the religion, but there's nothing else like scientifically. There's nothing else actually to do some research or that actually enable us to move forward and stuff like that. So it kind of held us back.
Yeah, you're getting to the point that I wanted to make. You're getting to the point that I wanted to make. Let me make this.
Yeah.
Let me make this point real quick.
Let me just finish. Let me finish.
Please.
So the last brother that went to the Almoravid in Spain, who I remember the last time I was here, I mentioned this brother. He went to the Middle East. He learned the extreme version of Islam. He came with it to West Africa, around Mali and where Mauritania and Morocco is. The people didn't want him because they think he was too extreme. He was beating up people, forcing them, and he got kicked out of the Sahel. He ended up in Spain. And then at that time, our people in Spain were struggling against the Spanish people in North that was resisting Islam. Then after that, he went there and helped them to defeat the Spanish in the North. And then he settled and take over the Almoravid. And then he abolished science in Islam. So the reality is, we need to find ways to move forward. We need this technological advancement. We need to move forward from this only spirituality, because spirituality is good, but what else? Where is this gonna get us? Right? Where is this just spirituality gonna get us without the advancement of technology?
Hey, Al, let me pass it to Aziz Fall.
No problem.
Go ahead, Aziz.
Peace to the panel. I'm driving right now, so if I drop off, apologies in advance.
Yeah, are your windows rolled down?
They should be. They rolled up right now.
Okay, just you kind of.
Still bad.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I agree with what some of the brother was saying, but if you really look at it, African traditions are the most inclined to scientific inquiry at the moment, at least on the continent, as far as I've seen. The level of dogma isn't as heavy. And African traditions have always been very open. I just want to say a few things, and I'm gonna just pass the mic. And it seems like when we're talking about finding ourselves in some of these Abrahamic traditions, it seems like we're trying to justify the myth. Like, are we trying to say that all Igbo or all Nigerians or all these people are all Hebrews? I don't think that would make logical sense. At some point, we just have to take things for kind of what they are. I feel like my sound is probably bad, so I'm going to just pass the mic, and peace to everybody.
So, Dynas, he made the point that we got to get out of all of this religion and start advancing, when that means he doesn't understand about African sacred science. Because if you go back to one of the high points, which is Kemet, right? That 3,000 years ago, we were, and there's evidence of it. The Rhine papyrus is in, and there's the Moscow papyrus. One is in Germany, one is in England, I think. This is mathematical papyrus, 3,500 years old. And at that time, we were, doing geometry, trigonometry, arithmetic, all of these basics in math, in order to apply, when you apply trigonometry, that's basically calculus. And we were doing this to, be able to build those pyramids and different things. And that was just that. Anatomy, physiology, all those things are also on paper, on papyrus paper. There's the Edwin Smith papyrus that has the mathematical, that has the medical stuff on it. So these are things that we were doing and advances we're making. We don't know that if we don't know the truth, which is going back and really looking at our history. Tichet in West Africa, we're just now starting to discover what that's about. We don't even know the details or any really, deep stuff about Tichet. We just see the ruins of Tichet. That's pre-Kemet, pre-Kemetic culture in West Africa. So we've got to look at that. I think it might be alongside, but it's older than the Ghanaian Empire and the Bornu, the other one called Bornu, whatever that is. We're not doing our homework. We're just kind of surfacely listening to people and hearing stuff. And if you're going to do that, listen to the people who really did the work. If you're going to only listen to YouTubes and shit, listen to some of these people that have really spent their life doing the work. Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Smalls, Kaba Kamene, and others. Robin, what's the brother? Walker in UK. He's talking about architecture and other stuff. So we're not doing our homework, and we're making these statements. And to move forward in the future, really it is about resurrecting where we've been in decline for the last 3,000 years. So in the invasion into North Africa is where we've been in decline since then. I'll land right there.
Right.
All right, cool, guys. Listen, we're gonna close out. Anyone have anything else they want to share in closing?
Yep, just one thing. I've listened to it. I personally think there's way too much emphasis on the spirituality. There's got to be more. If we want to progress, we can't just keep relying on praying to deities. There's got to be more.
Okay, anybody else?
I'll leave a quick last word, and I agree with the brother. We do have to focus more on science, but obviously, everywhere in the black world, there are these burning existential questions. So, with that, I'll leave to say that none of our systems have made it out from colonialism unscathed, and especially not the Abrahamic traditions. So, in the future, it'd be cool if, when we talk about these things, we can talk about them in a way that is more solution oriented, in a way that we can adapt our reality like powerful people do, in a way that can profit us and benefit us the most. And that's my last word.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for understanding, my point. But I think, is the way forward. Spirituality, we had enough of it now. We've been following it for centuries, and the downfall of, the Islam that we practice, is actually, it's proven today that we actually have suffered a lot since this guy went to the Almoravid and wiped it out. He got rid of it and replaced it to just spirituality and science, innovation and stuff like that. And also, we need to be more expansionist. We need to find a new system or a new, religion to adapt to, whether it's Islam, Christianity, or African religion. I'm living in the UK. The British people were never originally Christians, but during their heyday, they adapted Christianity because they found it to be more, innovative. They find it to be more, scientific and stuff like that. So that's something like that we need to adapt to, something that works for all of us as one group of people. And, the hate is not going to get us nowhere. We need to build the right alliances in the world. We cannot just do things on our own. The world is globalized as well. So, on that note, thank you very much, Dynast. That's what I said. This is the best Pan-African or black platform in the world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Right.
Big up, Diane.
Black solutions for black problems.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for Titi Loa. Titi Olua, you want to say something?
I want to say one last thing. I'm really happy that we are all recognizing that, like someone said before, we all have a problem going on, and I pray that and hope that we're able to sort this out by the grace before the next decades grows up, okay? That we are going to be the generation to come about to the reality and to be able to bring about what we really need as a Black race in order to free ourselves from whatever bondage that I feel like we are in. And secondly, spirituality is the reality. What I'm saying is everything that happened in the spirit realm is what happened in the physical realm. We just need to be able to interpret the spiritual in order to be able to know what's going to happen in the physical. So I don't believe that we should get rid of the spiritual. I think we need to understand the spiritual so that way we can have the advantage over the actual enemy or the actual force that is trying to bound us to just the physical, because we may think that we have been in the spiritual for such a long time. The reality is we have been in the physical. We have been looking things more physically. Now let's look inwardly so we'll be able to bring about the reality for ourselves of what we want for our next generation. That's all I have to say. Okay.
Don't let a
Can
white race
I
give
just say
you
lastly, I don't know if it's lastly, but I would like to thank Dynast for a great conversation. I was happy to be a part of it. And all the people that spoke, much respect to you all. And the people in the chat room, keep it close, man. It's coming around. We're coming back. It's going to happen. We might have hills and valleys still to go through, but it's going to happen. Just have belief. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror Search for Uru. Peace.
Peace.